Imagine living in a world where trust is as fragile as glass. In the Tudor court, betrayal wasn't just common, it was a way of life. You might think you know the story, but the twists will surprise you. What drove a king to betray his closest allies? The answer lies in the tumultuous rise of Henry VIII, a monarch who began as a charming young king and ended as one of history's most notorious figures. His quest for a male heir changed everything. This desperation transformed his personality and his relationships, sowing the seeds for a shocking era of betrayal. Henry wasn't born a tyrant. In fact, he was celebrated for his charisma and intelligence. He was a man of the people, someone who could rally support and inspire loyalty. But as his reign progressed, his obsession with securing a male heir began to overshadow his better qualities. With each failed marriage and each heartbreak, the kind-hearted young king evolved into a figure consumed by ambition and paranoia. Did you know that Henry had 6 marriages? Yes, 6! Each union was marked by political maneuvering and emotional turmoil. His first marriage to Katherine of Aragon was a disaster in the making. They had a daughter, Mary, but no sons. Henry's desperation grew, leading him to seek an annulment, which plunged him into conflict with the Pope. This conflict was not merely a personal crisis, it was the catalyst for the English Reformation. When you think about it, Henry's quest for a son wasn't just a familial longing, it was a matter of political stability. A male heir was essential to ensure the Tudor dynasty's survival. As alliances shifted and enemies emerged, Henry's marital woes shaped a dangerous landscape where trust was a luxury few could afford. His desperation would lead to betrayals that changed the course of English history. Consider the intriguing nature of political alliances. The idea that personal relationships could be so easily discarded for power is chilling. As Henry's marriages unraveled, so did his relationships with trusted advisors and friends. Those who once stood by his side found themselves on shaky ground, and soon the court was rife with conspiracies and betrayals. This conflict manifested most dramatically with the fall of Anne Boleyn. She had captured Henry's heart, yet their relationship became a battleground for political rivalries. Was Anne truly guilty of the charges that led to her execution, or was she merely a pawn in a greater game? As whispers turned into accusations, the court became a dangerous place where ambition eclipsed loyalty. The seeds of betrayal Henry planted in his early reign would bear fruit in unexpected ways. Each decision led to a web of deceit that ensnared not just the king, but those closest to him. Imagine being one of Henry's advisors, knowing that your life depended on his whims. One day you're a trusted confidant, the next you're a target of his mistrust. The tension in the Tudor court was palpable, with lives hanging in the balance. Henry's transformation from a benevolent king to a vengeful ruler is a classic tale of how power corrupts. As his allies fell one by one, the question arises, who could he trust? The very people who once supported him began to plot against him, fearing for their lives and futures. And here's a curious thought. Most people think betrayal in the Tudor court was always about ambition and power. But in reality, it often stemmed from personal grievances, misunderstandings, and the ever-present shadow of fear. This personal element adds a layer of complexity to the historical narrative that's often overlooked. As we delve deeper into the consequences of Henry's actions, consider how his decisions impacted his relationships with others. Friends became foes as alliances shifted, and the atmosphere of betrayal became infectious. With every betrayal, Henry solidified his reputation as a ruler who could not be trusted. The early seeds of betrayal planted in Henry's rise culminated in a series of events that would resonate through history. His need for a son not only led to personal tragedies, but also to a reformation that transformed England's religious landscape. This quest for a male heir inadvertently sparked a revolution that altered the course of European history. As we uncover these layers of betrayal, remember the human cost behind political maneuvering. Each betrayal was not just a chess move in a royal game. It involved real people with hopes, dreams, and lives at stake. It was a turbulent time, filled with personal and political conflicts that shaped the very fabric of Tudor society. In the coming sections, we'll explore the fallout of Henry's decisions, particularly how they affected those like Anne Boleyn, Thomas More, and countless others caught in the crossfire of Tudor politics. Each story unveils a shocking twist that will challenge what you think you know about this era. Stay tuned as we unravel the complexities of trust and betrayal in the Tudor court, revealing how these themes resonate even in our modern world. The lessons learned from Henry VIII's rise are profound, showcasing how the quest for power can lead to the most unexpected consequences. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Was Anne Boleyn really guilty? This question lingers in the air like the mist that surrounded the Tower of London on that fateful day of her execution. Anne Boleyn, the woman who captured the heart of Henry VIII, transformed from a radiant queen to a condemned prisoner in a matter of months. It's a tragic tale that reveals the ruthless nature of Tudor politics and the deadly power of ambition. Anne Boleyn was not merely a lady-in-waiting. She was a woman with aspirations that soared far above the expectations of her time. Most people think she was just a beautiful woman who caught Henry's eye, but the reality is that she was an astute political player. Her ambition was clear from the outset. She didn't just want to be a queen. She aimed to be the mother of the future King of England. However, her rise was not without peril. As she captured Henry's heart, she also made many enemies in the court who were eager to exploit her ambition for their own gain. The environment in the Tudor court was like a treacherous minefield. Anne's relationship with Henry ignited a firestorm of jealousy and resentment among the nobles. Political rivals quickly seized the opportunity to undermine her influence. How did a woman so close to the throne find herself accused of the most heinous crimes? The answer lies in the whispers that echoed through the court. Rumors became weapons, and court gossip was a potent force. Consider this: in the Tudor court, a simple rumor could lead to a death sentence. That's precisely what happened to Anne. As her star began to rise, so did the tales of her supposed infidelities and treasonous behavior. It's said that when Anne became queen, she became the target of court gossip that transformed her into a villain in the eyes of many. What were these accusations? Some claimed she had affairs with multiple men, including her own brother. Such allegations were shocking, scandalous, and ultimately lethal. Yet, most historians agree that these accusations were exaggerated or entirely fabricated. The evidence against Anne was flimsy at best, reliant on dubious testimonies and the manipulations of her enemies. In a twisted game of political chess, those who sought to bring her down painted her as a seductress and a conspirator. But here's a strange fact: during her trial, she was often referred to as the witch. This label, rooted in superstition and fear, reflects the lengths to which her rivals would go to tarnish her image. As we delve deeper into Anne's downfall, we must also examine the role of court gossip. Gossip was a potent weapon in Tudor society, and those who wielded it often shaped public opinion. Anne's downfall was not just about her actions, but also about how those actions were perceived and distorted by others. In this environment, her reputation was irrevocably damaged before she even had a chance to defend herself. What's particularly interesting is the psychological aspect of this betrayal. Imagine being in Anne's position, surrounded by people who once hailed you as queen, only to find them plotting your demise. The court was filled with treachery. Those who were once allies could quickly become adversaries. This treachery created an atmosphere where no one could truly trust anyone else. The irony here is that Henry's desire for a male heir was what led to Anne's execution. He initially saw her as a solution to his problems, a way to secure the Tudor lineage. Yet, in a tragic twist, Anne became the very reason for his downfall. The pressure of ensuring a male successor led Henry to make rash decisions, ultimately leading to Anne's execution for crimes that may not have even been true. As the days counted down to her execution, Anne faced her fate with remarkable poise. On May 19, 1536, she walked to the scaffold, wearing a dark dress, fully aware that her life was about to end. Her final words were an expression of innocence and defiance. She declared her love for the king even in her last moments. Yet the truth of her loyalty and innocence was overshadowed by the accusations that plagued her. Here's a controversial thought. Some historians argue that Anne's fall was inevitable due to the patriarchal structure of Tudor society, which saw women as expendable in the pursuit of power. This perspective challenges the notion that Anne's ambition was solely to blame for her demise. Instead, it highlights the systemic issues within the court that allowed such betrayals to flourish. Did you know that after her death, Anne became a symbol of tragic love and lost potential? While she was vilified during her life, her legacy transformed over time. People began to view her as a martyr for her beliefs and a tragic figure in the annals of English history. This transformation of her image reflects a common trend: how history often revises the narratives of those who were wronged. As we unravel the layers of Anne Boleyn's story, it's important to recognize the complexity of her character and the harsh realities of her environment. Anne was not just a victim, she was a player in a dangerous game of political intrigue. The very qualities that made her desirable also made her a target. So as we conclude this exploration of Anne Boleyn's fall, we see how her story intertwines with themes of ambition, betrayal, and the capricious nature of power. Tragic Anne serves as a reminder of the costs associated with navigating the treacherous waters of Tudor politics. In our next section, we'll examine how the relationship between Thomas More and Henry VIII unraveled, leading to another heart-wrenching tale of friendship turned betrayal. You won't want to miss it. Was Catherine Howard merely a victim of circumstance? This question encapsulates the tragic tale of a young woman who became the fifth wife of Henry VIII, only to meet a heartbreaking end. In the lavish yet treacherous world of Tudor court, Catherine was a symbol of youthful beauty and naivete, but her story is one of misplaced trust and devastating betrayal. Catherine Howard entered the Tudor court as a bright-eyed girl with dreams of love and power. Unlike her cousin Anne Boleyn, whose ambition was clear from the start, Catherine's rise was less calculated. Most people think that marrying the king guarantees safety and wealth. The reality, however, is that it can often place one in the crosshairs of danger. Catherine's flirtations, seemingly innocent, became her undoing in a court rife with jealousy and intrigue. At just 19 years old, Catherine was young and impressionable, thrust into a world where every move was scrutinized. Her marriage to Henry VIII, who was nearly 30 years her senior, initially seemed like a fairy tale. But behind the gilded walls of the palace lurked a harsh reality. The pressures of court life were intense, and Catherine found herself surrounded by powerful figures who viewed her as a pawn in their political games. Consider this: Catherine's courtship with Henry occurred during a time when the king's reputation was already tarnished by the failures of previous marriages. His desperation for a male heir had turned him into a volatile figure, and his insecurities cast a long shadow over Catherine's brief reign as queen. Did you know that during her marriage, Henry had become increasingly paranoid and unstable? This atmosphere of uncertainty made it all the more dangerous for Catherine, who relied on her charm and youth to navigate the complexities of the court. Catherine's youthful exuberance soon attracted attention, both good and bad. Her flirtations, innocent at first, were misinterpreted as signs of ambition. The whispers began, and soon her very character was being questioned. The harsh reality of Tudor life was that trust was fleeting. One day you could be the king's beloved, and the next you could be the target of treachery. The women at court, feeling threatened by her position, conspired against her, seeking to expose her perceived indiscretions. The irony is stark. Catherine was often referred to as the rose without a thorn, but her life was anything but free of danger. A strange fact about her life is that she had a flirtation with a man named Francis Derham before her marriage to Henry, which would come back to haunt her. The implications of her past would later become pivotal in her downfall. Once those whispers reached the king's ears, it created a storm that Catherine could not withstand. As her past relationships were scrutinized, the betrayal by her own family members further sealed her fate. Instead of supporting her during this turbulent time, they distanced themselves. Her once promising position turned into a trap, as betrayal from those who should have protected her became a harsh reality. The consequences of misplaced trust were dire. Catherine was arrested on charges of adultery, a claim that, while exaggerated, was fueled by the court's frenzy for scandal. Here's a controversial point. Many argue that her execution was a direct reflection of the misogynistic attitudes of the time, where women were often blamed and punished for the sins of men. In a court where the king's decisions ruled supreme, Catherine's story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of being a young woman in power. On February 13, 1542, Catherine Howard faced her execution at the Tower of London. Her death marked not just the end of her life, but also the culmination of a series of betrayals that had spiraled out of control. It's heartbreaking to consider that just months before her execution, she had danced at court, radiant and full of life, unaware of the impending doom that awaited her. In her final moments, Catherine displayed remarkable courage. She claimed her innocence, stating that she never intended to deceive the king. This plea highlights the tragic irony of her life. A girl who merely sought love found herself ensnared in a web of betrayal that would ultimately lead to her demise. Catherine Howard's story is often overshadowed by that of Anne Boleyn, yet her experiences reflect the fragility of trust in the Tudor court. Both women faced dire consequences due to their ambitions and the treachery that surrounded them, revealing how closely intertwined love and danger can be in a world where loyalty is constantly tested. As we reflect on Catherine's tragic tale, we must consider the lessons it imparts about the nature of trust and betrayal. Her life serves as a reminder that in the quest for love and acceptance, one must navigate a perilous landscape filled with hidden dangers and potential betrayals. In our next exploration, we will delve into the complex life of Thomas Cromwell, a figure whose ambition and ruthlessness shaped the very fabric of Tudor politics. You won't want to miss the twists and turns of his story. Was Cromwell a hero or a villain? This question resonates through history as we explore the life of Thomas Cromwell, a figure whose ambition and political maneuvers changed the course of the Tudor monarchy. Rising to power under Henry VIII, Cromwell played a pivotal role in shaping the religious and political landscape of England. Yet the methods he employed were often ruthless, leaving behind a legacy that is as complex as it is controversial. Cromwell's ascent to power is nothing short of remarkable. He began his career as a lowly blacksmith's son, yet he climbed the social ladder to become one of the most powerful men in England. Most people think that success in the Tudor court came solely from noble birth, but the reality is that talent and cunning often outpaced lineage. Cromwell's sharp intellect and keen understanding of the law allowed him to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics effectively. An interesting fact to consider is that Cromwell was instrumental in the English Reformation, which forever altered the religious landscape of England. While many saw him as a reformer, others viewed his actions as a betrayal of traditional values. He championed the separation from the Catholic Church, a move that placed him at odds with many of England's most powerful families. Herein lies the problem. How could someone who appeared to be promoting progress simultaneously alienate so many allies? Cromwell's ambition knew no bounds. As he solidified his power, he began to make enemies, many of whom were once his allies. His ruthless political maneuvers, such as the dissolution of the monasteries, showcased his willingness to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. The wealth obtained from these actions filled the royal coffers but left a trail of destruction in their wake. This is a controversial point. Some historians argue that Cromwell's actions were necessary for the modernization of England, while others see them as the acts of a villain motivated by greed. His role in the downfall of Anne Boleyn is a particularly telling aspect of his character. Cromwell orchestrated the very plot that led to her arrest and execution, aligning himself with those who sought to remove her from power. Here's a rare fact. Cromwell likely used Anne's own enemies to his advantage, showing his adeptness at playing both sides. This calculated betrayal demonstrates the darker side of his character, raising the question, was Cromwell a loyal servant to the king, or was he a power-hungry opportunist? As Anne's execution approached, Cromwell positioned himself as Henry's trusted advisor, further solidifying his influence at court. However, the irony of his situation was profound. The same methods he employed to gain power could easily be turned against him. The Tudor court was a dangerous place where today's ally could become tomorrow's hero's enemy. This environment cultivated a culture of betrayal, where trust was often a luxury. Cromwell's influence peaked during the mid-1530s, and with it came the weight of expectation. He was tasked with reforming the church and ensuring the king's desires were fulfilled, all while navigating a minefield of political intrigue. His success made him indispensable to Henry, yet it also painted a target on his back. The question remained, how long could Cromwell maintain this precarious balance before someone decided to remove him from power? He faced charges of treason and was arrested. The very system he had expertly navigated turned against him. The strange twist here is that Henry, who once relied on Cromwell, became a pawn in the game of betrayal, led by those who had once supported Cromwell's rise. This sudden shift serves as a reminder of how quickly fortunes can change in the ruthless world of Tudor politics. The fall of Thomas Cromwell is a classic tale of ambition and betrayal. In his last moments, he was executed in a manner that reflected the very politics he had mastered. Instead of dying a hero, he met his end as a victim of the treachery that had become so ingrained in the court. His legacy is complex. He is viewed by some as a visionary reformer, and by others as a villain who sacrificed friends and allies for power. As we examine Cromwell's life, we see a man driven by ambition, yet ultimately undone by the very traits that brought him success. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of political maneuvering and the fine line between loyalty and betrayal. In our next exploration, we will uncover the tragic story of Lady Jane Grey, a young queen whose brief reign was marked by manipulation and betrayal. Her experience illustrates the harsh realities of Tudor politics, and you won't want to miss how her tale unfolds. Can a puppet ruler ever truly betray? This is the haunting question that surrounds the untold story of Lady Jane Grey, a queen whose reign lasted just 9 days yet remains one of the most tragic chapters in Tudor history. Jane, thrust into power by the ambitions of others, navigated a world of betrayal and political intrigue that ultimately sealed her fate. Lady Jane Grey was not born into the traditional role of a monarch. Most people think that being the queen means wielding power, but the reality is that Jane was a pawn in a deadly game played by powerful factions. With her ascension, she was hailed as the queen, yet she was surrounded by rivals and manipulators eager to control her. This tension forms the core of her tragic story. Jane's rise to power is shrouded in complexity. Did you know that she was only 16 when she was proclaimed queen? At that tender age, Jane was not only facing the pressures of ruling a kingdom, but also the deadly politics of the Tudor court. The reason behind her appointment was rooted in the desire of powerful figures, particularly her father-in-law, the Duke of Northumberland, to maintain control over the throne. Here lies the irony. A girl who was seen as a beacon of hope for Protestant reformers was ultimately ensnared by the very ambitions that elevated her. As Jane ascended the throne, her reign was marked by the machinations of those around her. She had been married to Guildford Dudley, the son of the Duke of Northumberland, in a bid to solidify her claim. However, her marriage did not guarantee her power. Rather, it made her more vulnerable. Jane was seen as a puppet ruler, manipulated by the Duke and his ambitions. This raises a controversial point. Was Jane truly complicit in her rise, or was she merely a victim of circumstance? The moment she was declared queen was not one of celebration, but a chilling foreboding of what lay ahead. The factions in the court were deeply divided, and the legitimacy of her claim was tenuous at best. Her rule lasted a mere 9 days, and this brief period was rife with conflict. Most people would think a new queen would have the support of the people, but Jane faced a rebellion led by those loyal to Mary Tudor, Henry VIII's daughter. As tensions escalated, Jane found herself isolated and unprepared for the betrayal that was to come. A rare fact about this tumultuous time is that many believe Jane's rise was not merely a political maneuver, but a sign of divine favor for Protestantism. Yet, as the support for Mary grew, it became clear that Jane's reign was hanging by a thread. The question arose, could a mere teenager navigate such perilous waters of loyalty and betrayal? The rebellion culminated in a swift and brutal response. Mary's supporters rallied against Jane, and the political landscape shifted dramatically. Imagine being in Jane's shoes, suddenly thrust into a role of power yet stripped of any real authority. The Duke of Northumberland's plan had backfired spectacularly. The young queen was ultimately captured and imprisoned. As her fate was sealed, Jane's tragic irony became evident. The very people who elevated her to the throne turned against her when their ambitions faltered. She was executed for treason, but not before she became a symbol of innocence lost in the ruthless world of Tudor politics. In her final moments, she displayed remarkable courage, proclaiming her belief in the Protestant faith. Yet even that was overshadowed by the tragedy of her circumstances. Reflecting on Lady Jane Grey's story reveals deeper insights into the nature of power and betrayal. She was an intelligent and educated young woman, yet the forces at play around her rendered her powerless. The tragedy of her life serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition and the fragility of trust. Most notably, Jane's life exemplifies how the quest for power can lead to betrayal, not only of others, but also of oneself. In conclusion, the untold story of Lady Jane Grey is a poignant reminder of the precarious nature of power in the Tudor court. She was caught in a web of ambition and betrayal, and her life raises important questions about agency and victimhood. As we transition to our next exploration of Tudor history, we will delve into the tumultuous events surrounding the pilgrimage pilgrimage of grace, where common people banded together against the tyranny of the king. The unexpected alliances and betrayals that emerged from this rebellion will keep you on the edge of your seat. What happens when the people betray the king? This question encapsulates the dramatic events of the Pilgrimage of Grace, a significant uprising that shook Tudor England to its core. In a time marked by religious turmoil and political unrest, the people of the North banded together in rebellion, challenging the authority of Henry VIII and his sweeping reforms. The Pilgrimage of Grace began in 1536, catalyzed by the king's aggressive religious policies. Most people think that commoners were merely passive recipients of royal decrees, but the reality is that they could be powerful agents of change. The rebellion was sparked by the dissolution of the monasteries, a process that saw religious houses dismantled and their wealth seized. For many in the North, this was more than just a religious issue. It was a direct attack on their livelihoods and way of life. Did you know that this rebellion involved tens of thousands of participants? This was not a small uprising. It was a major challenge to the crown. The strange fact here is that while the leaders of the rebellion aimed to present their cause as a pious pilgrimage, it quickly escalated into a full-blown revolt against the king's policies. The leaders, who included the likes of Robert Aske, framed their actions as a quest for the restoration of the Catholic faith and the protection of the North's traditional rights. Yet, underlying this was a profound sense of betrayal felt by the people. As the rebellion gained momentum, it became clear that the grievances extended far beyond religious issues. Economic hardship, high taxes, and the loss of local governance fueled resentment against the crown. The nobles and gentry who had once supported Henry found themselves confronted by a populace that felt increasingly marginalized. This sets the stage for a critical question. How could a king who once enjoyed overwhelming support face such a dramatic rebellion? In the aftermath of the uprising, Henry's response was swift and brutal. The Pilgrimage of Grace was met with military force, and those who participated faced severe repercussions. Many were executed, while others were imprisoned or fled. A controversial point here is that Henry's reaction to the rebellion did not merely suppress dissent, it also exacerbated tensions across the country. Instead of quelling the unrest, it laid the groundwork for future resistance to his reign. The rebellion highlighted the deep divisions within Tudor society, especially regarding the North's relationship with the crown. The North had long felt neglected and marginalized by the more prosperous South, which further fueled the rebellion's intensity. One of the rare facts to consider is that the Pilgrimage of Grace is often overlooked in history books, overshadowed by the more prominent figures of the Tudor court. Yet, its significance cannot be understated. It was a manifestation of the people's desire for a voice in their government. As the uprising unfolded, the people of the North managed to capture key strongholds, including York, and even paraded a banner emblazoned with the 5 wounds of Christ, signifying their commitment to their cause. The imagery of the banner emphasized that this was not just a political rebellion, it was framed as a moral crusade. The leaders sought to leverage the king's supposed divine right to rule, yet they were effectively challenging that very authority. However, as hopes of success surged, a rift began to emerge among the leaders of the rebellion. Infighting and disagreements over goals weakened their unity. A strange twist in this tale is that while they aimed to protect their rights and religious practices, their lack of a coherent plan ultimately led to their downfall. The movement, which began with fervor and hope, started to fracture under the weight of its ambitions and internal conflicts. He employed a mix of diplomacy and force, offering pardons to some rebels while ruthlessly suppressing others. Here lies another controversial fact. Henry, known for his fierce temper, demonstrated a cold pragmatism in his dealings with the uprising. He saw the Pilgrimage of Grace not just as a challenge to his authority, but as a threat to his reign itself. The aftermath of the rebellion saw significant consequences for those involved. While some rebels were granted clemency, many were not so fortunate. Executions became a tool for Henry to reassert his authority, sending a clear message that dissent would not be tolerated. The repercussions of the Pilgrimage of Grace reverberated throughout Tudor society, highlighting the perils of rebellion and the fragile nature of power. As we reflect on the events of the Pilgrimage of Grace, it becomes clear that this uprising was a pivotal moment in Tudor history. It showcased the complexities of loyalty, betrayal, and the people's quest for agency in a rapidly changing world. The echoes of this rebellion remind us that history is often written by the victors, yet the voices of the common people can still resonate through time. In our next exploration, we will dive into the plots against Elizabeth I, where intrigue and betrayal flourished at the highest levels of power. The web of conspiracies surrounding her reign is filled with unexpected twists and shocking revelations. You won't want to miss the secrets we uncover. How did Elizabeth navigate a web of betrayal? The reign of Elizabeth I is marked by intrigue, conspiracies, and a constant fight for survival. Many people think that being a queen means you have ultimate power and control, but the reality is that her life was filled with threats from both friends and foes. Elizabeth faced plots that sought to undermine her authority, with betrayal lurking at every corner. At the heart of her struggles was the infamous Mary, Queen of Scots. Most people remember Mary as a tragic figure, but her ambitions were a significant threat to Elizabeth's reign. Mary claimed to be the legitimate Queen of England, and many Catholics viewed her as the rightful ruler. This claim made her a figurehead for plots against Elizabeth, including the Babington plot, which aimed to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne. The strange fact is that despite being imprisoned for years, Mary managed to orchestrate a conspiracy that could have changed the course of English history. During this period, Elizabeth's court was rife with espionage. Trust was a luxury no one could afford. In fact, it's estimated that there were more than 50 spies operating at various times, reporting on the goings-on at court. This creates an unsettling picture. A queen ruling in a climate of paranoia, where even her closest advisors could be plotting against her. The question arises, how did Elizabeth manage to outsmart her adversaries and keep her throne? And key to her survival was her ability to adapt. Elizabeth was known for her intelligence and her keen political instincts. She carefully cultivated her public image, presenting herself as the Virgin Queen, which earned her both admiration and fear. By maintaining her unmarried status, she avoided the complications that came with a husband's ambitions. Instead, she wielded her single status as a diplomatic tool, enticing suitors and using their affections to her advantage. However, the complexities of her relationships were fraught with tension. Many nobles saw her as a figure to be manipulated rather than a monarch to be respected. For example, Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, was a man Elizabeth cared for deeply. A controversial fact here is that Elizabeth's reliance on Dudley's counsel ultimately led to conflicts with other powerful nobles, creating rifts in her court. Many believe that his influence was excessive, breeding resentment among other members of the nobility. Elizabeth's response to betrayal was often strategic and calculated. When the Babington plot was uncovered, she took decisive action. The fact that she ultimately signed Mary's death warrant, despite her reluctance, underscores the extent to which betrayal had permeated her reign. It was a cold reminder that in politics, personal relationships could turn lethal, and trust could be a weapon. The fallout from the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, sent shockwaves throughout Europe. Many viewed Elizabeth's actions as a betrayal of a fellow queen, and it strained England's relationships with Catholic nations. The controversial point here is that Elizabeth, who sought stability, inadvertently deepened the divisions in Europe. Her actions forced her to live with the knowledge that her position was as precarious as ever. The plots against Elizabeth did not end with Mary's execution. They continued to emerge, fueled by rival factions, both within England and abroad. The Spanish, particularly King Philip II, sought to exploit Elizabeth's vulnerabilities. The Spanish Armada of 1588 was one of the most significant threats to her reign. Most people think of it as a straightforward military conflict, but in reality, it was a culmination of years of betrayal and political maneuvering. The unexpected defeat of the Armada by the English fleet solidified Elizabeth's reputation as a capable monarch, but it also heightened the tensions and distrust in her court. Elizabeth's cunning nature and her ability to read people played crucial roles in navigating these treacherous waters. She surrounded herself with advisors who were loyal, yet she remained vigilant of their ambitions. Both sides is that her council meetings often involved fierce debates, where she would let her advisors argue their points before making a decision. This tactic not only engaged her advisors, but also ensured that she had all the information needed to make a well-informed decision. Throughout her reign, Elizabeth faced countless threats and betrayals, but she consistently turned them to her advantage. Her ability to manipulate perceptions and maintain a strong public persona allowed her to navigate through the chaos. This makes her one of history's most fascinating figures, as her reign reflects the complexities of power and the delicate balance of trust and betrayal. As we explore Elizabeth I's legacy, it becomes clear that her story is one of resilience and strength in the face of treachery. The events of her reign highlight the precarious nature of political power, especially for a woman in a male-dominated society. In our next segment, we will delve into the role of spies and informants in the Tudor court, uncovering the hidden dynamics that influence the fate of the realm. You won't want to miss the secrets that will be revealed. Who could you really trust in the Tudor court? Tudor England was a realm where shadows moved as swiftly as whispers, and spies were as common as courtiers. Most people think that loyalty reigned supreme among the nobility, but the reality is that betrayal lurked behind every smile and compliment. Spies became the lifeblood of political intrigue, weaving a tangled web of secrets and lies that changed the course of history. During this tumultuous period, the role of spies and informants was paramount. The strange fact is that one of the most notorious spies, Sir Francis Walsingham, was not only a spy master for Queen Elizabeth I, but also a staunch supporter of Protestantism. His network of spies operated both domestically and abroad, gathering information that was vital for maintaining Elizabeth's rule. As the Queen navigated a world rife with conspiracies, Walsingham's intelligence helped expose plots, including those involving Mary, Queen of Scots. The tension in Elizabeth's court was palpable, with the constant fear of betrayal from within. Even her closest advisors were often suspected of harboring ulterior motives. The infamous Babington plot in 1586, which aimed to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne, underscores how trust was a luxury few could afford. Most people think that plots against the crown were exclusively orchestrated by the discontented lower classes, but the truth is that nobles played significant roles in these schemes. The intrigue extended into the heart of Elizabeth's inner circle, where political ambitions often led to deadly consequences. Espionage during the Tudor era was not just about gathering information, it was also about manipulation. The bizarre fact here is that many informants were double agents, playing both sides to their advantage. For example, the cunning spy Robert Lord Sidney provided information to Elizabeth while also conveying messages to his sister Mary. This duality highlights the precarious balance of power in the Tudor court, where loyalty was frequently tested. Elizabeth's response to such betrayal was a mix of shrewdness and ruthlessness. She often employed espionage tactics to turn potential threats into opportunities. The intrigue was not limited to high-ranking officials. Common folk were also caught in the crossfire of these machinations. The spread of rumors and gossip acted as an informal espionage network, impacting relationships and alliances across the realm. A rare insight is that many nobles, fearing their own downfall, would use local informants to keep tabs on their rivals, illustrating how widespread this culture of distrust truly was. However, the secretive nature of espionage led to unintended consequences. The trial and execution of innocents wrongly accused of conspiracy reflect a darker side of this intelligence war. One controversial point is that while Elizabeth's regime is often celebrated for its stability, it was built on a foundation of paranoia and fear, where even the most trivial suspicion could lead to a death sentence. Walsingham's legacy as a spy master transformed the approach to intelligence in England. His methods became a model for future intelligence operations, emphasizing the need for surveillance and preemptive action. Yet raises an important question: at what cost did this intelligence come? The impact of betrayal not only shaped the political landscape of the Tudor period, but also altered personal lives, creating rifts and tragedies that are often overlooked in history. As we delve deeper into the role of spies, it becomes clear that their influence extended far beyond mere information gathering. They shaped alliances, fueled conflicts, and orchestrated the downfall of those who posed a threat to the crown. The intricate dance of deception in Tudor England reveals the fragility of power and the lengths to which individuals would go to protect their interests. In our next segment, we will examine how the betrayal of the Catholic Church played a crucial role in this complex tapestry of loyalty and treachery. You won't want to miss the revelations that lie ahead. How did religious loyalty lead to treachery? The tumultuous period of the Tudor dynasty was marked by a seismic shift in religious allegiance that set the stage for betrayal. Most people think that the split from the Catholic Church was a straightforward affair, a simple act of defiance against the Pope, but the reality is much more complex. This rift created chaos not just in the Church but also throughout the very fabric of society, leading to intense conflicts that would change England forever. When Henry VIII declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England, he was not just seeking to annul his marriage to Katherine of Aragon. He was effectively tearing apart centuries of tradition and loyalty. The bizarre fact is that his decision to separate from Rome wasn't solely about personal desires, but also driven by political necessity and financial gain. The Church owned vast lands and wealth, and severing ties with it allowed Henry to seize that power for himself. This move would ultimately set off a chain reaction of betrayals that would ensnare both noble and common subjects. The ensuing religious turmoil led to a division between Catholics and Protestants that was not merely ideological but deeply personal. Families were torn apart by differing beliefs, with loyalty to the crown often clashing with faith in the Church. A little-known fact is that some of the fiercest defenders of the Catholic faith were former Protestants who, fearing persecution, flipped their loyalties again. This created a convoluted web of alliances and betrayals, illustrating how faith became a pawn in the political game. Tensions escalated further during the reign of Mary I, who sought to restore Catholicism with brutal fervor. Her infamous Marian persecutions led to the execution of hundreds of Protestants, further entrenching the divide and breeding resentment. It's controversial to assert that Mary's reign was less about faith and more about personal vendetta, but many historians argue this point. Her actions served as a stark reminder of how deeply intertwined religion and power can be, often leading to disastrous consequences. Elizabeth I and Catherine inherited this mess when she took the throne. Her approach to religion was more pragmatic, favoring a middle ground that aimed to quell the flames of discord. However, the specter of betrayal loomed large, with plots like the Ridolfi plot and the Babington plot threatening her reign. These conspiracies revealed that loyalty was precarious. Even trusted advisors could be swayed by religious fervor to commit treason. The reality of espionage and manipulation during her reign highlights how the once unified faith had splintered into factions that sought to overthrow her. As the years progressed, the intertwining of politics and faith continued to spur betrayals that affected not only the elite but also the common people. Ordinary citizens often found themselves trapped between conflicting loyalties to their monarch and their beliefs, leading to a precarious existence where the wrong word or action could lead to execution. Discovering the depths of this conflict uncovers the harsh reality faced by those caught in the crossfire of shifting loyalties. Ultimately, the betrayal of the Catholic Church during the Tudor era underscores a critical lesson about the fragility of power. The collapse of religious unity served as a catalyst for political upheaval and personal betrayal, illustrating how deeply personal convictions can become twisted in the service of ambition and control. The lessons learned from this period echo through history, reminding us of the complexities of faith, loyalty, and power. In the next segment, we will explore the tragic story of Robert Dudley, a man whose love for Elizabeth I set him on a dangerous path filled with betrayal and ambition. You won't want to miss how personal relationships collided with the political landscape of the time. Was love worth the risk of betrayal? The story of Robert Dudley is a compelling sprawling tapestry of ambition, desire, and treachery woven into the very fabric of Tudor politics. Most people think of Dudley as merely a suitor of Elizabeth Aragon's, but the reality is that his influence extended far beyond romance. He was a key player in the dangerous game of court politics. Dudley, the son of the Duke of Northumberland, emerged from a tumultuous background. His family had ties to the controversial Lady Jane Grey, which painted a target on his back during the ever-shifting allegiances of the Tudor court. Imagine this, a young man born into a world where his family's name was both a blessing and a curse, setting the stage for a life defined by risk. As the narrative unfolds, we'll see how love intertwined with political ambition, leading to perilous choices. At first, Dudley's charm and connections allowed him to ascend in Elizabeth's court. His relationship with the Queen began as a deep friendship, possibly even a romantic affair. Yet his ambitions created tension with other nobles who viewed him as a threat. Controversially, some historians argue that Dudley was not just a loyal subject, but a manipulator seeking power for himself. This claim challenges the perception of him as a mere love-struck nobleman and highlights the ruthless reality of Tudor court life. A lesser-known fact is that Dudley's marriage to Amy Robsart was a strategic move, initially to solidify his status. But when Amy died under mysterious circumstances, many whispered that Dudley had orchestrated her death to free himself for Elizabeth. This scandal would haunt him, feeding the flames of suspicion among rivals. The question lingers, did he genuinely love Elizabeth, or was she merely a stepping stone to greater power? As Elizabeth ascended to the throne, she faced immense pressure to marry and produce an heir. Dudley, who had positioned himself as her confidant, was constantly torn between his love for the Queen and the ambitions of those around him. The tension escalated when Elizabeth's advisors urged her to consider other suitors, fearing Dudley's influence might overshadow her reign. The stakes were high, and loyalty was fleeting in a court riddled with intrigue. Dudley's ambitions led him to consider plots that would bolster his power. One particularly shocking scheme involved marrying Elizabeth in secret, while simultaneously maneuvering to eliminate other claimants to the throne. It's a gripping reminder of how personal relationships can morph into dangerous political calculations. This conflict of love and ambition ultimately drove a wedge between him and Elizabeth, who was wary of any semblance of betrayal against her rule. The impact of Dudley's choices rippled throughout the court, affecting not just his fate but that of many others. His ambition sparked a rivalry with figures like Lord William Seymour, who also vied for Elizabeth's favor. As these tensions mounted, Dudley found himself in a precarious position, where betrayal could come from any direction, even those he considered allies. Ultimately, Dudley's story is a tragic reflection of how love and ambition can collide in the most unexpected ways. Elizabeth's eventual decision to reject his advances and marriage proposals served as a reminder that trust once broken is nearly impossible to restore. His dreams of power were dashed, leaving him isolated and disillusioned in a court that had once celebrated his ascent. As we wrap up this exploration of Robert Dudley, it's crucial to recognize how his life reflects the complexities of Tudor politics and the frailty of human relationships. The question remains, was love ever truly worth the risk of betrayal? The answer lies in the shadows of history, where ambition often eclipsed affection. In our next section, we'll delve into the story of Lady Salisbury, whose tragic fate serves as a sobering reminder of the harsh realities of loyalty and betrayal during the Tudor era. You won't want to miss the shocking details that reveal just how perilous it was to serve in the royal court. What makes her story so often overlooked? The tale of Lady Salisbury is a striking example of how political dynamics and personal loyalty can clash in the unforgiving arena of Tudor politics. While many might not recognize her name, her life and tragic end encapsulate the perilous reality of serving in the royal court, where betrayal could strike without warning. Lady Salisbury, born to a prominent family, had connections that tied her closely to the Tudor dynasty. You might find it surprising that she was the last direct descendant of the Plantagenet line, a lineage that held a significant place in English history. This connection not only made her a valuable asset, but also a target in the eyes of those who coveted power. The fragility of her position in the court illustrates a harsh reality. In a world of shifting loyalties, being well-connected could spell doom just as easily as it could lead to favor. In the late 1540s, after the death of Henry VIII, Lady Salisbury found herself amid a tumultuous power struggle. Despite her noble heritage, her fate became a harrowing example of how the powerful could easily discard those who once served them faithfully. She became a victim of political machinations orchestrated by those seeking to eliminate any threats to their ambitions. It raises an intriguing question. How often do we overlook the stories of those who stand in the shadows of more famous historical figures? A little-known fact that might surprise you is that Lady Salisbury was not only a member of the nobility, but also deeply loyal to her family and the Tudor crown. Her son, for instance, was embroiled in the political turbulence of the time, which put her at greater risk. The tension between personal loyalty and political expediency is a recurring theme in Tudor history, and Lady Salisbury's life illustrates this beautifully. She was faced with a moral dilemma. Should she support her son's ambitions at the risk of her own safety? As the power dynamics shifted dramatically under the reign of Edward VI, Lady Salisbury's once secure position became increasingly precarious. She was implicated implicated in various conspiracies, not because of her actions, but due to the ambitions of those around her. In 1541, she was accused of treason and arrested, which highlights a controversial point. Often, being a victim of circumstance is just as dangerous as being an active participant in betrayal. Most people assume that those who fall from grace in history are guilty of wrongdoing, but many innocent lives were upended by the whims of power-hungry nobles. Her arrest was a series of events that underscored the brutal reality of Tudor politics. Imprisoned in the Tower of London, she faced a fate that many had experienced before her. The execution of Lady Salisbury was not just an individual tragedy, but a grim reminder of the perils that awaited anyone entangled in the treacherous game of court politics. It's a chilling thought that loyalty could lead to death in such a mercurial environment. Her execution was swift and brutal, and it left a scar on the fabric of Tudor history. While many figures from this era are celebrated or remembered, Lady Salisbury's story has faded into obscurity. This oversight is both puzzling and tragic, as her life represents the countless individuals whose stories remain untold amidst the broader strokes of historical narratives. As we consider the legacy of Lady Salisbury, we must ask ourselves why her story is so often overlooked. The answer lies in the nature of history itself. More attention is paid to those who wield power than to those who are. Yet by examining her life and tragic end, we gain invaluable insights into the dangers of betrayal and the costs of loyalty in a world where trust is a fragile illusion. In conclusion, Lady Salisbury's narrative serves as a crucial lesson about the complexities of Tudor politics and the harsh realities faced by those who serve in the shadows of great power. Her story deserves to be told and remembered, not only for its tragedy but for the light it sheds on the human cost of ambition and betrayal. Now let's turn our attention to the next gripping tale from the Tudor era, the betrayal of the Duke of Norfolk. You'll discover how ambition can lead to a shocking fall from grace, reshaping the very landscape of power in Tudor England. Don't miss the details that will reveal the intricate web of loyalty and betrayal surrounding this powerful nobleman. How did ambition lead to a fall from grace? The story of the Duke of Norfolk is a compelling tale of power, betrayal, and the intricate dance of loyalty in the Tudor court. A member of one of England's most powerful families, the Duke sought to secure his family's legacy, but instead found himself ensnared in a web of political intrigue that would lead to his undoing. The Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Howard, was not just a nobleman, he was a man of considerable ambition and intelligence. However, as many in Tudor England discovered, ambition can often lead to treachery, especially when coupled with the dangerous currents of court politics. Did you know that at one point the Duke was in line for the throne himself? Most people don't realize how close he came to seizing power, making his eventual betrayal all the more shocking. As we delve into his story, it's essential to understand the context of his ambitions. The political landscape was perilous, with various factions vying for influence in the wake of Henry VIII's death. In this environment, the Duke sought to align himself with powerful figures, including Mary, Queen of Scots, whom he believed could be a key ally. This alliance, however, proved to be a double-edged sword. Most historians agree that seeking favor with Mary was a strategic error, yet at the time, it seemed like a promising avenue to power. The complexity of family loyalty played a significant role in Norfolk's betrayal. He was not only ambitious but also bound by the ties of family and tradition. When he joined the Ruthless plot, a conspiracy to place Mary on the English throne, he believed he was acting in the best interest of his family. However, this misguided loyalty to Mary would soon become his downfall. It raises an interesting question. How often do familial ties blind individuals to the risks of their ambitions? The irony here is profound. His attempt to elevate his family ultimately led to its disgrace. As the plot unraveled, the tension escalated. The Duke was arrested, and the evidence against him was damning. What is often overlooked in the retelling of this story is the role of informants and spies, which permeated the Tudor court. In this perilous game, trust was a luxury no one could afford. One might think that noble status would grant immunity from betrayal, but the truth is starkly different. In the ruthless world of Tudor politics, even the highest born could find themselves at the mercy of lower-ranking courtiers eager to curry favor. Facing execution, the Duke's fall from grace was swift and brutal. It's a shocking fact that many nobles met a similar fate, yet their stories are often lost in the shadows of history. The Duke of Norfolk's execution in 1572 serves as a chilling reminder of the cost of ambition and betrayal in the Tudor court. His demise did not just signify the end of his ambitions, it also marked a significant shift in the political landscape, further cementing the power of Queen Elizabeth III and showcasing the lengths to which she would go to eliminate threats to her rule. In the aftermath, the legacy of the Duke of Norfolk is complicated. While he is often remembered as a tragic figure, it is essential to recognize the cautionary tale his life presents. Most people think that noble blood guarantees a life free from the dangers of betrayal, but Norfolk's story tells us otherwise. In reality, ambition intertwined with treachery can lead to dire consequences, irrespective of one's social standing. As we explore the consequences of his betrayal, we see how it reshaped alliances in Tudor England. The fallout from his execution reverberated through the ranks of the nobility, instilling fear and caution among those who dared to plot against the crown. It illustrates how betrayal could not only dismantle individual lives, but also alter the very fabric of political dynamics within the court. In summary, the Duke of Norfolk's story story is a sobering reflection on ambition, loyalty, and the precarious nature of power in Tudor England. His life exemplifies the dangers of intertwining personal ambitions with the volatile world of royal politics. As we move forward in our exploration of Tudor betrayals, we'll uncover the secret marriages that rocked the court and the hidden stories of loyalty that influenced the course of history. What secrets were hidden behind closed doors in the Tudor court? Join us as we unravel the tales of clandestine unions and the betrayals that ensued. These hidden alliances may change your understanding of Tudor politics forever. What secrets were hidden behind closed doors in the Tudor court? The Tudor period, marked by political intrigue and ambition, was also a time of clandestine unions that dramatically affected the lives of those involved. In a world where love and loyalty often clashed, secret marriages could either cement a family's power or spell disaster. Many of these hidden alliances are not only fascinating, but have left a lasting impact on the fabric of Tudor society. Imagine this. Most people think that marriage in the Tudor court was always a public affair with elaborate ceremonies and family gatherings, but the reality is far different. Many marriages occurred in secrecy, shielded from the prying eyes of court politics and the harsh realities of public opinion. These unions were often born out of necessity or desire for political maneuvering, leading to betrayals that would change the course of history. One little-known fact is that secret marriages were so common that they often went unnoticed by even the most astute observers of court life. Let's delve into how these secret marriages came about. During the reign of Henry VIII, the landscape of marital alliances shifted dramatically. Traditionally, marriages were strategic, cementing alliances between powerful families. However, as court intrigue escalated, some couples found themselves in positions where they could not afford to let their unions be known. Case of Edward Seymour, for example. Marrying Anne Stanhope in secret illustrates how ambition could lead individuals to forge bonds that defied the expectations of their families. This secrecy posed risks not only to their reputations but also to their lives, as the Tudor court was notoriously unforgiving to those who stepped outside its strict norms. The impact of these hidden alliances was profound. Secret marriages often created divides within families and factions within the court. Consider the secret marriage of Lady Jane Grey to Guildford Dudley, which was driven by ambition and desire, but ultimately led to their tragic downfalls. The ambition of their families to secure power created a whirlwind of betrayal and conflict that culminated in their execution. The story serves as a stark reminder of how it raises the question: was their love worth the risk of betrayal, or were they merely pawns in a larger game of political chess? The consequences of secret marriages extended beyond individual fates. They had the potential to upend the political landscape, creating ripples that could destabilize alliances. Most historians agree that these clandestine unions contributed to the chaos of the Tudor court. A revelation of a secret marriage could incite rivalries, as other nobles saw opportunities to exploit these hidden vulnerabilities. The intrigue surrounding the marriage of Lady Elizabeth Fitzalan and Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, illustrates how a union could shift loyalties and disrupt the delicate balance of power. In a court where trust was a rare commodity, the risks associated with secret marriages became a double-edged sword. The fear of exposure loomed large, creating a culture of paranoia among courtiers. One strange fact is that some couples employed informants to protect their secrets, ironically adding layers of betrayal to their very unions. As one might expect, these whispers of disloyalty often led to the very betrayals that the couples sought to avoid. As we explore these hidden marriages, it's crucial to recognize the societal pressures that shape them. Women in the Tudor court often had their fates dictated by the decisions of men. Secret marriages could offer them a semblance of agency, yet they were fraught with peril. The tragic tale of Anne Boleyn serves as a poignant example. Her marriage to Henry VIII was both a love story and a political strategy, yet it ultimately led to her execution. Women like Anne often found themselves trapped in a web of loyalty and betrayal, highlighting the precarious position they held in Tudor society. The fallout from secret marriages reverberated through the court, impacting not just the individuals involved, but also the wider political landscape. When the truth behind these unions was revealed, it often led to scandals that could destabilize entire factions. This was evident in the case of Robert Dudley, whose secret marriage to Amy Robsart sparked suspicion and envy among rivals, contributing to a larger narrative of betrayal that played out in the public eye. In conclusion, the secret marriages of the Tudor court reveal a complex interplay of love, ambition, and betrayal. These hidden alliances serve as a reminder of the fragile nature of trust in a world dominated by political maneuvering. They challenge our understanding of the period, demonstrating that loyalty can be a commodity bought and sold, often at the expense of those involved. As we move forward, we'll examine how the legacy of these clandestine unions shaped the future of Tudor England and its perception of love and loyalty. What lessons can we draw from the hidden stories of the Tudor court? Join us as we uncover the legacy of Tudor betrayals and the impact of these secret unions on history. How did betrayal shape England's future? The Tudor era was not just a time of power struggles and royal marriages. It was also a landscape littered with acts of treachery that would leave lasting scars on the nation's history. These betrayals were not merely personal. They were political maneuvers that altered alliances, shifted the balance of power, and changed the course of the monarchy itself. Most people think that betrayal in the Tudor court court was simply a matter of personal vendettas, but the reality is that these acts of treachery were deeply intertwined with the very fabric of society and governance. The fallout from these betrayals often reached far beyond the individuals involved, influencing policies, shaping public opinion, and even altering the trajectory of English history. Let's start by examining the repercussions of Tudor betrayals. For instance, the fallout from Henry VIII's split from the Catholic Church in his quest for a male heir not only led to the formation of the Church of England, but also sparked widespread political and social upheaval. The repercussions of this betrayal of the Catholic Church reverberated through generations, leading to a legacy of distrust between the monarchy and its subjects. It was a turning point that influenced everything from religious practices to daily life, showing just how profoundly betrayal could shape a nation. Consider the execution of Anne Boleyn. Her rise and fall provide a stark illustration of how betrayal can intertwine with personal ambition. Henry VIII's desperate desire for a male heir led him to marry Anne, but her eventual downfall came swiftly when she failed to deliver. The political machinations that followed, where friends turned into foes and loyalty was overshadowed by ambition, highlight how betrayal in personal relationships can create ripples that impact the very structure of power. This event not only marked the end of Anne's life, but also initiated a series of turbulent changes within the court, altering alliances and setting new precedents for future monarchs. Interestingly, some historians argue that the betrayals committed during this period were necessary for the evolution of the English political system. The conflicts and the upheavals that arose from acts of betrayal created a dynamic environment where new ideas could flourish. The aftermath of these betrayals led to reforms and changes that would shape the governance of England for centuries. This notion challenges the traditional view that betrayals are inherently negative. Instead, they can also serve as catalysts for progress and reform. As we reflect on these events, it's important to remember that the Tudor period was defined by its complex web of relationships. The shifting loyalties and hidden agendas illustrate a society where betrayal was not just a tool of the elite, but something that ordinary people had to navigate as well. The legacy of these betrayals has had a lasting impact on English society, shaping the way power is perceived and wielded. Moreover, the women of the Tudor court often found themselves in precarious positions where they had to navigate a world rife with betrayal. They played key roles in many of these events, whether as victims or as actors in their own right. This highlights the multifaceted nature of betrayal and how it intersected with gender dynamics during this period. Women like Catherine Howard and Anne Boleyn were often pawns in larger political games, demonstrating how personal ambition could lead to personal destruction. Their stories remind us that betrayal often has a human cost, influencing not just the political landscape, but the lives of those caught in its wake. The legacy of betrayal in the Tudor court serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the fragile nature of trust. It challenges us to think critically about loyalty and ambition, showing that these qualities can sometimes lead to the very acts of treachery that one seeks to avoid. The echoes of these Tudor betrayals can still be felt today, as they inform our understanding of power, politics, and personal relationships. In conclusion, the betrayals of the Tudor period were not isolated incidents. They were pivotal events that shaped the course of English history. The lessons learned from these stories reveal the fragility of loyalty and the power of ambition. As we move forward, it's essential to recognize how these betrayals inform our understanding of human relationships today. The echoes of the Tudor court remind us that trust, once broken, can have far-reaching consequences, and the legacies of betrayal continue to shape the world we live in. What do you think we can learn from these historical betrayals? Let's explore the deeper implications of these stories and their relevance to modern society. How were women more than just victims in the tumultuous world of the Tudor court? The narratives often portray them as mere pawns in the hands of powerful men, but the reality is far more complex. Women wielded significant influence, often orchestrating betrayals or using their positions to manipulate outcomes in their favor. Most people think the Tudor court was dominated solely by men, but the reality is that women like Anne Boleyn, Katherine of Aragon, and Elizabeth I were powerful players in their own right. Sins not only shaped their own fates, but also had profound implications for the entire kingdom. Understanding the role of women in these betrayals reveals a rich tapestry of agency, cunning, and resilience. Let's dive into some compelling examples. Anne Boleyn's rise to power is perhaps one of the most iconic. She was not just a beautiful woman vying for the king's affection. She was a savvy political player who understood the intricacies of court life. Boleyn's ambition was formidable, and it was this ambition that ultimately led her to the throne as queen consort. However, it was also her drive for power that made her vulnerable, as she became a target for those who felt threatened by her influence. While it's easy to view her as a naive girl caught in a web of intrigue, she was also a woman who used her charms to navigate a male-dominated court. Her flirtations and youthful exuberance played a role in her tragic end, yet they also highlight how women could maneuver within the strict confines of Tudor society. Catherine's story is a cautionary tale about how ambition can backfire, showing the double-edged sword of female agency. A controversial point to consider is that while women like Boleyn and Howard are frequently discussed in terms of their relationships with men, they were also instrumental in their own right. For instance, Elizabeth I's reign was marked by her refusal to marry, effectively using her single status as a political tool. Her ability to maintain power while defying traditional expectations of marriage and motherhood showcases the complexity of female power dynamics in the Tudor era. It's fascinating to note that women were often the ones who facilitated secret marriages, which were common in the Tudor court. These unions were sometimes born out of love, but often they were strategic moves intended to align powerful families or secure alliances. The hidden nature of these marriages underscores the covert ways women influenced political landscapes, even when their actions were not visible in the public eye. These stories remind us that women in Tudor England were not merely victims of circumstance, but active participants in shaping their destiny. They navigated a world fraught with danger and deception, using their wit and charm to influence outcomes. The impact of their actions can still be felt today, as the lessons from their lives offer valuable insights into the nature of power, loyalty, and betrayal. As we continue to explore this topic, we will uncover more instances of how women shaped Tudor history. Each story reveals layers of complexity that challenge the narrative of passive victims, showcasing instead a lineage of women who were formidable players in the drama of the Tudor court. The echoes of their lives remind us of the importance of recognizing female agency throughout history, urging us to reconsider what we know about this fascinating era. What more can we learn from the women who lived and thrived in a world where trust was a rare commodity? The answers may surprise you. What are the misconceptions about the era of Tudor betrayals? Most people think they know the stories, tales of political intrigue, romantic escapades, and dramatic executions. But the reality is far more complex and layered than the simplified narratives we often hear. Their history is riddled with exaggerations and myths, shaping our perceptions of key figures and events in ways that often obscure the truth. For instance, while it's commonly believed that Anne Boleyn was merely a seductress who brought down a king, the truth reveals a woman of significant political acumen who was a catalyst for monumental change in England. The narrative of her seduction oversimplifies her role in the Reformation and the profound impact she had on church and state affairs. It's fascinating to consider that many stories from this period have been dramatized beyond recognition, largely influenced by sensationalist writers and filmmakers. One such story is that of Elizabeth Rise. The common narrative paints her as a ruthless queen who wielded power with an iron fist, but historical records suggest a ruler who navigated treacherous waters with remarkable skill and grace. Another controversial point is the portrayal of Mary, Queen of Scots, often depicted as a tragic victim of Elizabeth's machinations. Yet the reality is that Mary was equally a player in the dangerous game of Tudor politics, participating in plots and betrayals herself. The oversimplified view that sees her solely as a pawn fails to recognize her agency and the complexity of her actions. A lesser-known fact that may surprise many is that the famed Bloody Mary nickname, attributed to Mary Rise, was popularized during her reign but often overlooks the context of her policies, which were rooted in a turbulent religious climate. The historical accuracy of such monikers can be misleading, distorting our understanding of the motivations behind the actions of these rulers. As we delve deeper into this subject, we will unravel the myths versus reality in Tudor history, revealing how these misconceptions continue to influence our view of the past. What if the narratives we've been taught are only half the story? Understanding the truth requires us to sift through the fabrications and sensationalized tales to uncover the rich, often messy tapestry of Tudor life. Throughout this section, we will explore how these myths originated and persisted, examining how historical narratives are constructed and the implications of these narratives on our modern understanding of power dynamics and betrayal. The exploration will take us through the intricacies of historical storytelling, demonstrating that history is not just a series of events, but a complex interplay of power, perception, and legacy. By the end, we will have a clearer picture of the Tudor period, enriched by an understanding of the reality behind the legends. Prepare to question what you thought you knew about this captivating era and discover the nuanced truths that shape the course of history. The most shocking betrayal often goes unnoticed, lurking in the shadows of history. In the tumultuous world of the Tudor dynasty, where trust was as fragile as glass, one could argue that the real betrayals were not just between rivals, but often cloaked in the guise of loyalty and love. One such betrayal involves the lesser-known figures who played pivotal roles in shaping the Tudor landscape, their stories often overshadowed by more famous names. Today, we will dive into the depths of these unexpected betrayals, uncovering the secrets that could change everything you thought you knew about this fascinating period. At the heart of Tudor history lies a series of betrayals that not only changed the course of individuals' lives, but also reshaped the very fabric of England's future. While figures like Henry VIII and Elizabeth often take center stage, the ripples of betrayal reached far and wide, impacting those who were often seen as mere footnotes in history. Among them are hidden figures whose actions, or inactions, had far-reaching consequences, illustrating how betrayal isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes, it's the quieter actions that speak volumes. Consider, for instance, the lesser-known conspiracies and alliances formed in the court, where secret marriages and clandestine agreements were often the precursors to grand betrayals. The very fabric of loyalty was woven with threads of ambition, love, and deceit. The stories we will uncover today will not only shed light on these hidden hidden betrayals, but also challenge our understanding of loyalty and treachery in a time defined by them. And if I told you that a simple secret marriage could have led to a major shift in political power? As we delve into these intricate tales, you may find yourself questioning the very nature of trust and loyalty. So, buckle up as we embark on a journey through Tudor history, uncovering the most shocking betrayals you didn't see coming. The Tudor court was rife with ambition, intrigue, and often the kind of betrayal that makes for the most captivating tales. Our exploration will reveal the unexpected twists and turns that defined not just individual lives, but the fate of an entire nation. We'll learn about the hidden alliances that formed in the shadows and the betrayals that echoed through the ages, reshaping history in ways you might never have imagined. Let's begin our journey into the hidden betrayals of the Tudor court and discover the stories that lie beneath the surface of this rich historical tapestry. In the world of the Tudors, where ambition often trampled over loyalty, one lesser-known betrayal occurred during the reign of Elizabeth of Thars. You might be surprised to learn that one of her closest allies was involved in a scheme that could have changed the course of her reign. This betrayal, involving a secret marriage and hidden agendas, illustrates that not all betrayal is loud and brash. Some are insidious, creeping in like a shadow until it's too late to escape. Throughout history, we've often focused on the dramatic fall of well-known figures, but today we will shine a light on the darker corners of Tudor life, where the real betrayals occurred. You will hear about the tragic tales of those whose fates were sealed not by their actions, but by the manipulations of others. As we move through each story, remember, the Tudor court was not just a stage for kings and queens. It was a complex web of relationships, all precariously balanced on the knife edge of ambition and loyalty. So, stay tuned as we unveil the layers of betrayal, one shocking revelation at a time. As we unravel these stories, think about what betrayal truly means in the context of loyalty and ambition. How do we define loyalty when so many were willing to sacrifice it for power? How does this history reflect our own relationships today? Prepare yourself for insights that will not only engage your mind, but will challenge your perceptions of trust, loyalty, and betrayal in a historical context. In the Tudor court, where loyalty could turn into betrayal with a whisper, the truth is often more shocking than fiction. Let's dive into the stories of the hidden betrayals that could change everything. In the world of Tudor England, where every secret marriage had the potential to spark a political firestorm, we see the duality of love and betrayal unfold. We will explore how these clandestine unions and their hidden implications illustrate the perilous dance of power and the often overlooked figures who shape Tudor history in significant yet understated ways. As we unravel these narratives, ask yourself, what would you have done in their shoes? Would you have chosen loyalty over ambition, or would ambition have lured you into a web of betrayal? Prepare to uncover the most shocking betrayals of the Tudor era and see how history has been shaped by these hidden stories. So, as we embark on this journey through the most shocking Tudor betrayals, get ready for unexpected revelations and a deeper understanding of the complexities of loyalty and treachery in one of history's most fascinating periods. If you enjoyed this epic journey, please subscribe to our channel for more thrilling historical tales. Don't miss out on new videos. Hit the notification bell to stay updated.